Because ultimately, I went from an emotion that got me so angry if I wanted to go and and risk my, whether it be freedom or life or whatever it is, to go do something stupid, to be involved in something that is dumb. I worked out. I hung out around people that worked out. And I like the idea that motivation and drive, and where there's a will, there's a way mentality. Whether if it came from a person that did 30 years in prison, if it came from a person that was in a war as a Marine, it didn't matter to me. Or if it was a Wall Street, hedge fund guy, whoever that's worth millions and billions of dollars, and he wakes up 5:30 in the morning to blow up some steam before, regardless of whatever the story was, I realized that the body is that people tap into, right? It's like music. It's a vibration. Music brings people together. That's why, like, during civil rights movement, people, like, they would music brought people together. Music is what humor is what brings people together. Laughter, being sad, sometimes bring people together. Emotions is what brings us together. It's where you start to see the harmony come into play, where all of our different pain points start to connect, all of our joy points start to connect. Why do I really appreciate this concept? Because I had to engineer the idea of what it felt like for family to feel real. Right? It didn't come natural to me. It was something, you're a little kid and you're like living somewhere, and it's like, this is not your like actual biological family, but it's your family. And so you operate as such. So it's like literally like, if you're a character, you're Batman, but now you're in Superman universe, and you like, you have your own universe, but you just in Superman, and you're okay with that. Breaking a cycle is really hard. Breaking a cycle is really hard because you have to face a lot of stuff. You have to. And if you have kids, I highly encourage you break any cycle that you have. Because if you don't, you're essentially going to pass that on to them in a very indirect way. And breaking cycles is not just buying stuff for kids or, just even being there. Breaking a cycle is, how do they see you in the world? Right? Like, how do they see you? I work on that so much. Like, I want to work on, not that I care about how the people see me, but I care most importantly about if I have a hard time being kind. I have a hard time being kind. I'm gonna admit to that. There are times where I'm not kind. My daughter would tell me, "You're not being kind, Daddy." And so I realize if she sees me and I'm not being kind, then she'll see me as an unkind person. And then when she gets older, even though the generations now have these like traumas, but it's like, you ain't have to see nobody brains get blown out, right? Not to make it so bleak, but the idea is that, and I'm not minimizing anybody's experience, but there's magnitudes of things. There's things on scales, and the overall objective is that we should always be aiming to get better, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. You're never done. You're not done. It's not like, okay, I made it. Never. You'll be 80, 90, 100 years old. There's something that's still, before you go back to where you came from, Still something you gotta work on. One of the other reasons why I started this podcast is about the end of last year is when I really started to get into computer science and just YouTube University, learning, teaching myself Python, teaching myself different coding techniques, and just, by the way, don't know nothing, but learning is something that I love to do. I love to learn and try to increase my knowledge on things. And with technology today, what's the excuse? What's the excuse? Like, you can pretty much do anything you want to do today. And so it made me really dive deep into this idea of computer science. And naturally, having a science degree in exercise science, I like to pick things apart, and I want to really understand what's going on underneath the hood. And coding and just software development and programming and how things operate between a software and hardware in a computer, you start to realize like how literally our energy is starting to morph into another frequency. What I mean by that is this. When you take water, fire, dirt, wind, you take all of the elements, you start to build land, you start to build structure, you start to build organisms. Organisms start to replicate. And then they start to compete, and they start to think, and they start to innovate, and they start to constantly keep growing and evolving. This is how the evolution, you watch it grow in this way. And then now here we are. We have computers. We have the internet. I can email you. You can text me. I can send you a video. We could stream movies. We're disrupting industries now because we have the internet. And it all comes down to simple zeros and ones. Zeros and ones, and electricity and transmitters and signals and frequencies and vibrations and algorithms and all of these different things that I started to learn and understand, data structures and variables and functions and all of these different things that I'm like, wait, hold on, this is what happens in the real world, right? Social media. We're going to have an episode on this. Social media is a loop. That's all social media is you like something, your friends like something, or different data points have been collected on you, and we're just going to keep feeding you stuff. Now they don't even need to personally attack you. They just look at what the collective is looking at and then feed that out. So everybody talking about Diddy? Cool. More Diddy. Politics? Cool. Right? Like, there's real shit going on in the world, and the algorithm is designed to keep you blind, deaf, and dumb. Now, your experience, the user experience is, they don't feel like somebody is stealing from them. You don't feel like someone's stealing your time, stealing your data, stealing your attention, it doesn't feel like that. And in some instances, you actually feel productive. You may say, well, today I learned how to, scrub whatever. And I'm not knocking anybody I do it. But when I started to learn and understand, you almost look at things like, oh wow, this is how they make Coca-Cola so good. You start to really understand like the product, and you start to really understand that consumer and creator. And this is the world we live in. We live in a world full of consumers and a world of creators. And so the technology basically is mirroring how we are evolving. So if we evolve and we're just like a bunch of like sheep and just, yeah, we're just eating, we just eating. And then there's a few people out here that's feeding them. This is the world we live in. This is what's happening. So when we cover certain episodes in future episodes, when we have conversations about duality, when we have conversations about build and destroy, when we look at concepts and principles, we have to understand that we either use these things for better or for worse, right? Are we going to use this technology? Are we going to use this means of communication to expand our consciousness, to elevate, to go beyond? Or are we going to use this to constantly just be entertained and so it doesn't feel too bad? You know, whatever pain or whatever it is that you're dealing with, whatever depression, whatever anxiety, whatever thing that you're trying to procrastinate on, whatever it is, like if you're spending time doing something and you only have a limited time here on earth, you should be looking at the ROI. You should be looking at, like, for example, sleep. We sleep a large portion of our lives. And, you know, it's like the quality of our sleep sucks. I know my quality of sleep sucks. And a lot of our quality of sleep sucks. So we should improve it, right? But it's hard to improve and it's a cycle. And we try to constantly figure out how to break out these webs, which we'll talk more about. So definitely going to cover a lot when it comes to concepts and abstract ideas and much more that we're going to be discussing. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you sat through a whole hour long or whatever this is going to be, whatever this is going to add up to, and you sat here and you listened to me talk, I appreciate the listen. Go ahead, hit the like and subscribe. And if there's anything that I said on here today that maybe resonates, that maybe you have a story and maybe there was some dots that had to connect for you, and maybe you have some dots that you want to talk about, you know, we can have you on the podcast if you're open to that and you're maybe vulnerable enough to do that. But the point is that I want to thank those that are tuning in. I want to thank to the future listeners out there. And again, if there's anything that I've said here, please share, like and subscribe. Peace and love.
Hey, nowadays the pain follow me. Deal with trauma privately. I don't want to be a burden.